Most men spend their entire lives trying to be impressive. The men women genuinely cannot stop thinking about never tried to be impressive at all. They gave her something far more powerful than impressive. They gave her a feeling she had never felt before, and that feeling, once felt, becomes impossible to forget. What we're covering today is the specific feeling rooted in neuroscience, attachment psychology, and decades of relationship research that creates the deepest, most lasting attraction available between two people. One section covers why this feeling is so rare that most women have never genuinely experienced it from a man they were attracted to. Another covers the specific moment when this feeling either develops or gets destroyed, and it happens faster than you think. And the climax is the deepest motivational truth about attraction I have ever put into a single video. Stay with me. Here is the honest premise. The feeling that creates genuine, lasting, transformative attraction in a woman is not excitement. It is not passion. It is not the specific aliveness of uncertainty and chase. It is something older than all of those things. Something the nervous system recognizes before the conscious mind has formed an opinion. Something so rarely offered and so profoundly needed that the man who gives it genuinely becomes unforgettable. The feeling is this: complete, unconditional, fully present acceptance. Today we break down exactly what that means, how to build it, how to give it, and why it changes everything. 7 sections: real psychology, real motivation. Let's go. Bold claim: the single feeling that makes women deeply, lastingly drawn to a specific man is one that most men have never consciously tried to create, because nobody ever told them it was the thing that mattered most. Here is the neuroscience. Carl Rogers, one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century, identified unconditional positive regard as the most healing, most connecting experience available in human relationship. The specific experience of being accepted, fully, without conditions, without the need to earn or maintain that acceptance, produces neurological and psychological effects that conditional acceptance simply cannot replicate. When a woman is in the presence of a man who offers this feeling, whose warmth toward her doesn't fluctuate based on how she performs, whose acceptance doesn't require her to be a particular version of herself, something specific happens in her nervous system. The threat detection system goes quiet. The social performance layer, the constant monitoring of how she is being received, relaxes. And underneath that relaxation, something opens that is normally kept carefully protected. She becomes genuinely herself. And being genuinely herself, fully, safely, without management, in the presence of someone she finds compelling, is one of the most profound emotional experiences available to a human being. The man who creates that experience becomes associated, in her emotional memory, with the most alive and most fully inhabited version of herself. And we do not forget the people who give us access to our best selves. Scenario: a man named Daniel, 49, had developed genuine emotional intelligence through years of deliberate inner work, met a woman named Claire at a professional event. The conversation went somewhere real. She said something she immediately second-guessed, watched his face to see how he received it. He received it with complete warmth, zero visible judgment, genuine interest in what she actually meant rather than immediate reaction to the surface of it. Claire told her friend the next day, "I said something I don't usually say, and he just received it. Like it was the most natural thing. I felt like I could say anything." That feeling of being able to say anything is one of the rarest and most powerfully attractive experiences available, and Daniel had created it not through technique, but through genuine, practiced acceptance. Bold claim: the feeling of complete acceptance is so rare in human interaction that most women have never genuinely experienced it from a man they were attracted to, which means the man who offers it genuinely stands alone in her experience. Here is the reality. Most social interaction, particularly early romantic interaction, is heavily performance-oriented on both sides. She is managing how she presents. He is managing how he comes across. Both people are showing curated versions of themselves to curated audiences. In this environment of mutual performance, genuine acceptance is structurally almost impossible. You cannot fully accept someone you haven't fully seen. And you cannot fully see someone who is performing rather than being present. The result is that most people move through their entire romantic lives experiencing conditional acceptance, being received warmly when they perform well, accepted when they present the right version, loved when they meet the criteria, almost never experiencing the profoundly different feeling of being received completely, mess and all, history and all, uncertainty and all. The man who breaks this pattern, who creates conditions for her to stop performing and simply be, does something that is structurally extraordinary. He steps outside the mutual performance that characterizes most interaction and offers something genuine instead. She feels it immediately, as relief, as the specific exhale of a person who has been holding tension they didn't know they were holding. And that relief becomes one of the most compelling reasons she wants to be near him. Bold claim, the feeling of complete acceptance is not a personality trait you either have or don't. It is a set of specific, learnable, practicable behaviors that any man can develop with genuine commitment. The first practice is listening to understand rather than to respond. Most listening is actually waiting, processing what the other person says just long enough to form your own contribution. Genuine listening is different. It follows the thread of what someone is actually meaning rather than what they are literally saying. It asks follow-up questions that prove you were tracking not just the words, but the person underneath them. When she speaks and you listen this way, really listen, without composing your response, without relating it immediately to your own experience, she feels something she will describe later as being genuinely heard. And genuine hearing is the foundation of genuine acceptance. The second practice is receiving what she shares without immediately evaluating it. Most people, when someone shares something with them, immediately evaluate it, agreeing or disagreeing, judging or approving. The man who receives what she shares with genuine curiosity rather than immediate evaluation creates a different kind of space, a space where she can share more honestly, where the next thing she says doesn't have to be pre-filtered for how it will be received. The third practice is staying consistent regardless of her state. She will have days when she is difficult, when she is quiet, when she is not her best self. The man whose warmth toward her remains consistent across those variations, who doesn't withdraw when she is less available or more complicated, builds a specific kind of trust that fluctuating warmth never produces. The fourth practice is not needing her to be different from what she is. This is the hardest one, and the most important. The man who genuinely, not performatively, accepts who she is right now, not who she might become, not the better version he hopes to see, but the actual, present, fully inhabited person she is today, gives her the experience that most people spend their entire lives hoping for. Mini story. A man named Marcus, 53, had practiced these 4 things for 3 years after his divorce, not to attract anyone, because he recognized in the honest accounting of why his marriage had failed that he had never fully offered them. He had listened to respond. He had evaluated rather than received. He had been warmer when she performed well and cooler when she struggled. And he had spent 20 years hoping she would become someone slightly different from who she was. He spent 3 years practicing differently. When he met a woman named Sarah, 38, she described the experience of talking to him to her sister. He makes me feel like everything I say is interesting, like I'm not being graded, like I can think out loud without worrying about the grade. That was not Marcus being charming. That was Marcus having genuinely changed how he engaged with another person's inner life. Bold claim, there is a specific moment in almost every developing connection where the feeling of complete acceptance either crystallizes or collapses. and most men blow it without knowing it happened. Here is the moment. She shares something vulnerable, something slightly more real than what social convention requires, something that costs her something to say, a fear, an uncertainty, a part of her history that she doesn't usually offer in casual interaction. And she watches your face, not dramatically, not consciously, but her nervous system is tracking your response with extraordinary sensitivity, because this is the moment that tells her everything about whether you are safe to be real with. The response that creates the feeling, genuine reception, warmth that doesn't flinch, a follow-up question that goes deeper rather than redirecting, the specific quality of a person who finds what she shared interesting rather than alarming, the response that destroys it, immediate advice, minimization, redirection to your own similar experience, a subtle shift in energy that communicates, without words, that her vulnerability was more than you knew what to do with. Most men don't consciously choose the second response. It is the default, the automatic deflection from emotional territory that most men have never been taught to inhabit comfortably, but the consequence is specific and significant. She reads the deflection as confirmation that being real with you is not safe, and she retreats, gracefully without drama, back behind the managed version of herself. And the connection that could have become something extraordinary settles into something ordinary instead. This is where the video shifts from psychological insight to genuine motivation, because everything we've covered so far requires something of you that no technique can substitute for. Bold claim: you cannot give a woman the feeling of complete acceptance until you have developed a genuine relationship with acceptance within yourself. And that internal work is the most important and most neglected developmental task available to men. Here is the truth. The man who cannot accept his own history, his failures, his wounds, his limitations, the parts of himself he wishes were different, cannot fully accept those things in another person. Not because he doesn't want to, because genuine acceptance is not a posture you can adopt selectively. It is a quality of being that extends outward from how you relate to your own interior life. The man who is at war with himself, who carries unprocessed shame about his past, who measures his current worth against idealized standards he hasn't met, who has accumulated a list of things about himself that he considers fundamentally unacceptable, will unconsciously import those standards into how he receives other people. He will flinch subtly when she shows him something he flinches at in himself. He will evaluate automatically because he has never stopped evaluating himself. He will be warmer when she performs well because his own sense of worth is contingent on performance. The internal work of genuinely, honestly, completely making peace with who you are is not separate from your capacity to love someone else well. It is the foundation of it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Apply this to self-acceptance. You have power over your relationship with yourself, with your history, with your limitations, with the complete picture of who you are. And the peace you build with that complete picture is the peace you bring into every relationship that follows. Do the work, not for her, for yourself, because a man at peace with himself is a man who can offer peace to others, and that specific earned, genuine peace is the foundation of everything we have talked about today. Bold claim. When a man consistently gives a woman the feeling of complete acceptance, not as technique, but as genuine expression of who he has become, the relationship changes in ways that neither person fully anticipated. Here is what happens. She stops performing around him. The carefully managed version gradually gives way to the actual one. She says things she didn't plan to say, shows sides of herself she doesn't usually show, becomes incrementally more fully herself in his presence than anywhere else. And as she becomes more herself, she becomes more interesting, not because she is performing interest, because the genuine, unfiltered version of a person is always more interesting than the curated one. The relationship deepens in ways that feel organic rather than constructed. Because genuine depth, the kind that lasts, only grows in the soil of genuine acceptance. It cannot be manufactured through romantic gestures or forced through intense experiences. It emerges naturally when two people feel safe enough to actually show up as themselves. She begins to associate his presence with the specific experience of being her most alive, most honest, most fully herself. And she begins to move through the world with slightly more of that quality, carrying something he gave her into every other context. That is not a small thing. That is one of the most significant things one person can give another. This is the truth reveal, the deepest motivational insight in this entire video. Bold claim: the man who consistently gives a woman the feeling of complete acceptance doesn't just create attraction. He becomes permanently woven into her understanding of what love is. He becomes the reference point, the experience against which everything else is measured. Here is why this is the deepest truth. We form our understanding of what love is and what it feels like through specific experiences of being loved. The people who love us in genuinely transformative ways, who see us completely and accept what they see, who create the conditions for our most genuine self to emerge, do not just matter to us in the moment. They become part of how we understand the world, part of what we are looking for in every connection that follows. The man who offers this feeling, genuinely, consistently, from a place of real inner work rather than performed technique, becomes one of those people, one of the ones she carries, not because of what he gave her, because of who she became in the process of being genuinely received by him. That is the motivational truth at the center of everything we've discussed today. You are not trying to create attraction. You are trying to become someone whose presence is genuinely good for another person. Someone whose acceptance creates space for them to be more fully themselves. Someone whose way of engaging with the world makes the world slightly more habitable for everyone who encounters him. That is the work. Not the work of technique or strategy or carefully calculated moves. The work of becoming. Becoming a man who has made peace with himself, who listens genuinely, who receives without flinching, who offers warmth that doesn't fluctuate with performance, who accepts people fully, specifically without conditions. That man does not need to try to attract anyone. He simply shows up, fully, genuinely, completely himself. And the right people find their way toward him, not because he pursued them. Because what he has built over years of genuine internal work created a gravity that pulls real things toward it. Start building today, not someday, today. Because the version of you that gives this feeling, the grounded, genuinely accepting, fully present version, is not a distant aspiration. It is available to you now through the daily, deliberate, honest practice of becoming more completely yourself. That is the most important work you will ever do, and everything else, including the love you're hoping for, follows from it. Here is the question I want to leave you with. Where in your life are you still withholding genuine acceptance? From yourself first, and then from the people around you? Because the feeling we talked about today cannot be given from a place of internal withholding. It can only flow from a man who has first offered it to himself. Are you doing that work, or are you still waiting for the right circumstances before you begin? Drop in the comments. What is the one thing about yourself that you have the hardest time accepting, and what would change if you did? I read every single one. And if today motivated something real in you, something worth actually acting on, subscribe. Every week we bring this level of depth and honesty to the conversations that actually change lives. See you in the next one. Start the work today. The version of you on the other side of it is worth everything it requires.